I'm Dana Davidson, and I am the Associate Director of our Academic Support Center here at Daytona State College.
And I'm AD Delgado, the Emerging Technology Librarian here at Daytona State College.
Elizabeth Barnes and Kristen Bales couldn't be with us today, but they took part in the presentation and will speak on the behalf for their slides. What we're talking about today, the purpose is to share our joint chat, Daytona State College's Academic Support Center, Library, and Writing Center live chat. It's available via each department's website. The chat offers students a mode of communication that's familiar and comfortable to them, while giving academic support staff another way to engage students and refer them to appropriate, relevant campus resources.
So the chat begins with SpringShare lead answers. If some of you that are librarians already have seen this, SpringShare have a few models, aside from the info guides are the most well-known. Most libraries also have access to lead answers that have a chat service. So here, this is the chat. In the library, we were thinking that we can have the other academic support departments, the Writing Center and the Academic Support Center, join us on the chat. And we were talking about that, and they were not sure until Mother Nature.
So Kristen in the Writing Center was saying during one of the hurricanes, I believe this is Matthew.
Matthew, yeah.
So the only way she could communicate with the FPL was through a chat, and then she thought, okay, I'm going to take AJ up on his offer of getting this chat in the Writing Center because it's really convenient and helpful. So the reasons she chose to implement it is it offers the convenient, student-friendly communication option. It saves time, especially for them when they schedule appointments, and it engages their students online and refers them to other Writing Center resources. For my part in the ASC, I was the last on board. I was a little reluctant. Some of the reasons are up there. Our major reason I was a little reluctant is we get a lot of requests by non-DSC students for tutoring, and also we didn't want to have to answer content-specific questions in the chat because I have a wide variety of staff with different content knowledge, and I was afraid, for instance, my science specialist would be on when a calculus question came through, something like that. So we came up with an easy solution because we already had something called an Ask a Tutor widget that we embed. We allow instructors to embed in their course. So what we decided to do is we got this, we call them canned answers. So if anybody asked a content-specific question, we would pop this up, give them a link to our Ask a Tutor widget. And what that allows us to do is make sure they're students because they have to put in their student ID number and a school email address.
So once the department decide that they want to join Live Chat, that they want to have their own chat, we have to create their own queues. Because we didn't want a student from the higher question for the Writing Center to just enter the chat and have some random librarian or someone from the academic support answer their chat. So we created queues for each of the departments, and once I created those queues, created with the wizard for leave answers, each department selected who's gonna be the people that are gonna answer the chats. For example, in the library, when we started, we only have the librarians answering the chats during the same day for a period of 2.5 hours to 3 hours. A librarian will answer the chat there, but you will see that all the departments have a different approach to this. Once we have the chat ready and we have the users ready, I gave the department this simple script, depending on the type of chat that they wanted to create, if it was embedded on the web page or a pop-out. And the person responsible of their website just have to include that script, the HTML script on their header, and their chat will be ready to go.
So in the Writing Center, they have a variety of people staffing their chat, student workers, part-time staff, and full-time staff. Kristen said she loves it because it's so easy to use. AJ creates user profiles for her, and then she can limit the account privileges for her student workers.
In the case of the Writing Center, since we have students answering questions here, I limit their access to the program. They only can answer the chats. They cannot do anything else. They cannot see other tools inside the model.
And then Kristen did some research as well on the students answering the questions. And there is research out there that finds it's beneficial for student-to-student conversation through the chat. I won't read you the quotes, but obviously they're up there for you to see. And the last one deals with just in general the benefit of a chat, creating a natural context for learner independence. Staffing the chat in the ASC is a little bit different. We're going to talk about in a minute that we started getting a huge wide variety of questions coming in. And I wanted to start mine with just my full-time learning specialists. The way I decided to do it is we have 5 campuses. I assign my supervisor at each campus a day of the week for the chat. And then they could decide if they wanted all staff signed in all day, or then they could create their own schedule if they chose to do that. As you can see now, we did get a wide variety of questions. When we went live, I was amazed by the fact that most of the questions that were asked were actually not ASC related questions. And we think we know why. The title of our support area is called Academic Support Center, and we have academic advising. And I think students just basically looked through our website, they liked this chat, and they found a place to ask questions.
Yeah, I want to mention that when we established the chat for the writing center did eventually promote it. When we started with academic support, we did not make a huge marketing for the chat, but students were still finding it, and it was interesting because that widget was placed 2 clicks away from the main. They have to click 2 links at least from the main page to get there, and they were finding it.
And so what we ended up doing, because we were getting these wide variety of questions, we created what we call canned answers, so that if my person online got a financial aid question, an advising question, etc., we can copy and paste this into our answer and get them to the right place. Also, if it was a library or writing center question, we could transfer the chat directly to somebody that was online.
Because that's one of the tools that the chat includes. As long as the department have a queue, let's say that we in the library get a question about the academic support, we can transfer that chat to academic support. It will be invisible for the student. The student will notice that we did that, but they will get to a person that have the right answers.
So basically we made a whole guide for this. How do you transfer a chat? How do you do a canned answer? How do you link to a FAQ? Showed it to AJ and he thought it was good, so then he put it into a LibGuide.
Correct. Since we have, right now we have 4 departments with the chat that manage have different ways to manage their time and the way to answer them. We created an info guide that have the best practices that is something that is common for everybody, and then each of the departments have their own subsection that they add the things that are different and are particular to the department.
And we have lots of data.
We do.
First of all, just so you can see, this is an example. Of course, I won't read this whole thing. This is a very short chat. The student had a question about Chicago style. They could pop in an already created resource they had. The student was like, great, thank you. The next one is a lot longer. These can go on for pages, actually, and get very in-depth with, they'll give them in-depth help with citing their paper, the library as well.
Because that's the first data that when every time a student communicates with us through a chat, that conversation is safe. And part of the data that we have is a conversation. We have a way to
transcripts.
In the transcript, you have a way. We are keeping a database of the way the students think, the way they pass those thoughts in writing, and how they communicate that. And as you answer them, we have a lot of raw data about how they think. And we also have other data that we can get aside from that raw data about the way the students are communicating, they're thinking about the college and about their problems. We have stats about actual usage. For example, this is the stats for the chat in February. until last Monday, we have 349 answer chat and 396 total chat with Mix 47. We'll talk about this a little bit more in a few moments. Another stat that we keep is the users. Who's the user that is getting more chat? How they're answering. We have rating, we have percentage, we have hours, the day that is more used. We have all that kind of information.
And as you can see, once the Academic Support Center went live, we did start getting lots and lots of questions, which we could then share data with other departments on, hey, we're getting a lot of chats about your area. And that then led some other departments to take it on, which we'll show you some of that data in a minute.
Before going to that, one thing about the chat, and this is important to keep in mind, it works only when the department is online. And since it works when only the department is online, we have to find a solution what to do when those widgets are offline. So we have an FAQ. We have a page that the college actually use for the frequently answering questions. And I can tag all those answers by department. So I create a link in the widget that when it's offline, they actually, if they're using the academic support widget and it's offline, they click on the widget and they will go to the FAQ that is tied to the academic support, because the thinking is that if they are in that widget, they want questions that should be answered by that department.
So our next steps, like I said, our graphic got a little bit messed up here. But basically, this is a breakdown. When we went live, it was right before fall semester. And so we just took a snippet of the first 2 weeks, what type of questions we were asked. Our vast majority of questions were about advising, financial aid, general, and you can see ASD related questions were only actually 5 questions. So Liz brought this up in our chair, brought this up in some meetings. The enrollment specialist was like, hey, I think we should try this. So they did and got slammed with questions. It was really impressive how many questions they got. As you can see, January alone, they got 1,357 chats.
And that's when the academic support started, the writing center and the library usually get from 30 to 40 chats a month. When the academic support started, and they were the one with the word academic, they were getting from 60 to 80 chats a month. Once we created the enrollment server chat, and that was only, again, we did not advertise it. It's not in the main page. It's one click away from the main page. In January alone, they have 1,089 chats. The students are finding it, and the students are using it. That's the difference between all the departments. And as you can see, we do have a few missed chats that are not being answered. Basically, they're not being answered because we are getting more volume of chats that the people are available to answer. But the important thing is that lead answers save those chats that are not answered. And as long as there's someone, as long as the person put their contact information, we can go to that list of missed chat and answer the question, because they will write the question and the contact information. For example, in the library, I'm the one that usually go once a day and check if there are any missed chat and try to answer those questions. Each department has their own system to deal with those chats.
So we've also talked about, it would be great to have one of these chats on our main page, but our statistics here now are like, okay, this is great, but if we put a chat on our main page, I'm thinking we could get 10,000 a month
Something
easily.
Like that, yeah.
So then the question comes up of, well, then you need full-time people to staff this. They need a wide knowledge of the college. So this is a conversation that's going on, and it's a college-wide conversation that started basically with AJ saying, hey, ASC and Writing Center, would you like to have a chat? I can help you embed it. And he's helped the enrollment people as well.
And as a college, we think the information we're going to get is really good, because we're going to have, from the time that students usually visit us to the type of question that they have, even not only students, people that want to join the college. But considering how it exploded with enrollment services, having that chat in their main page, we have to think very well how it's going to work.
And just if you're curious, we have some references here. We do have our contact information. We spoke very quickly. I'm sorry, but we wanted to get through all of that and have time for questions. So if any of you do have questions, we'd be happy to answer those.
Well, while you type the question, other thing I want to mention is that, oh, okay, there one. Our issue with staffing a test of chat using writing, never mind.
You can.
Okay, is the inability to stay signed in, and okay, our issue with staffing the text or chat feature just in the library, never mind collaborating with 4 departments, is the inability to stay signed in and checking if a new chat appears. Are you able to somehow sign in into this on a mobile device, or is all online to desktop computer? Your answer, you go back to any message chat, or is that okay? Um, each department have their own way to staff it. For example, in the library, each librarian staff the chat for 2 hours and a half to 3 hours. We do it from the computer. In previous
While you're at the reference
When
desk,
we are in the
correct?
reference desk,
Yeah.
yeah. I have previous experience outside this college where we did use the phone. It's not the mobile device. Is not the best way to do it. We do try to minimize missed chat by be clear that the person that leave the chat to log off before leaving, so people don't get in when nobody is.
And it would go to the FAQs
is
when
there.
they log off, right?
And for example, enrollment services right now has over 30 people answering the chat. In total, and each day they have 10 to 12 person answering that chat, and they are the one that have a lot of missed chat, because even with 12 person, it's not that people come in and the chat is not is they have people in the computer, but there's sometimes there are 5 chat per person. So what they do is that they have someone that deal with those missed chat when they cannot be answered. The other question is, I missed your sharing where you have the widget place. If it's not the main marketing page, oh, okay. For the library, the chat is shared in the library main page. That one is not only in the library main page, in everything that is related to the library. I don't know if I answered Alex's question. For the writing center, we have the marketing page for Daytona State College, and there's a link that go to the academic support, and the academic support, there's a second link that go either to academic support center or academic support on the writing center. Each department here handle their own subsection of the site, so they put the widget right there.
And yes, basically it's our operation hours for our chat are the same as our operational hours face to face, and then when we're offline, it does go to the FAQs.
Yes, because that's something that even before we started with the writing center, that's something that before they had a chat, they created a very robust set of FAQ, the frequent asked questions, because the idea was not to have the value of the chat is to be answered correctly and give the student or the user the answers they want. And we wanted to have that FAQ to be as robust as possible, so when the chat was not open and they click that link that goes to the FAQ, have answers to those, not questions that we like, but questions that are actually frequently asked. And that FAQ keep evolving, because as we get more chats, we know more questions that are relevant. And we have deleted questions that have been there for a couple of years and have never had a view. So that's not a frequently asked question, obviously. So that's where it's an evolving process. It's a process that keeps going up, keeps changing and keep evolving. Thank you.
Thank you.